Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello, my name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of Robotics and Automation News.com. In this interview, I speak to Nolan Paul, whose full job title is Partner, Global Agricultural Technology Lead at Yamaha Motor Ventures and Laboratory Silicon Valley, or YMVSV. Basically, he's an investment expert who's looking for promising startups in the agtech sector on behalf of YMVSV, which has a fund of approximately $100 million for this type of activity. I asked Nolan about Yamaha's recent investment in Advanced Farm Technology, a US company which has developed an automated strawberry picker. Yamaha led the investment round, in which Advanced Farm Tech raised about $7.5 million. I also asked Nolan about the broader technology trends in agriculture, such as robotics and vertical farms.
Nolan Paul, I'm a partner here at Yamaha Motor Ventures. I lead up our food and ag investments, and so we look really across the value chain for food and ag, everything from in the field or in the water to post harvest and then downstream as well. And so from an agriculture standpoint, we've principally focused to date on plant crops, but we recently expanded also looking into livestock. So as a venture group, as YMVSV, we exist to really identify and invest in the future for our parent company. And so from that includes more than just investments. We do business development projects as well, strategic projects. But from an investment standpoint, as well as from a project standpoint, we're really focused on exploratory investments, so things that are not close to the core of Yamaha Motor. So we're not focused on finding things that would directly, work with our motorcycles. We're trying to find new markets, new business models, new technologies, and new markets. And so, that's a big area of focus for us, really the what's next. That's why we look at things like food and ag is a big focus area for us, health and wellness, aerotech, mobility, but still in areas that are not close to the core of Yamaha Motor. So that's one. Two, as I mentioned, we really are looking to invest in things that drive big social change. And so I mentioned that was really the first box we need to check when we look at any investment. But it's something that we really live by. We think that's really important for us as a company. And then from a fund standpoint, we invest in early stage technologies. So that's either Series Seed or Series A, potentially a little bit of Series B, but really trying to find early stage technologies and companies that are trying to do trying to transform the industries that they're in. As I mentioned, we invest in a 10-year cycle for the fund. It's set up like a traditional venture capital fund, which really for us, the rationale to start that this year was to be able to move faster and to invest along the same terms as other general venture capital investors. So we've now made 3 investments out of that fund. Things have been going well, and if there's any specific questions, they're happy to answer them.
Why did the Yamaha invest in advanced farm technologies, and how much of the 100 million fund did it allocate to that investment? If you're allowed to say.
We can't, but I can tell you I can discuss it in another way. But So, why advanced farm? We as a company have declared that agriculture is a major future area of growth for us as a company, and for us, in-field robotics is really important. We see that as a major area of focus for us. We've made some previous investments in the space. For example, Robotics Plus, which is a New Zealand company. And with Advanced Farm, we really, this is a difficult space to invest in. Because you're in the field, it's an uncontrolled environment. Development times take longer, and so it's really important to find teams that have experience. Advanced Farm does. The team had taken a previous startup in the solar space, doing robotic cleaning of solar panels from R&D to a commercial a product, and then was acquired by SunPower. So it's a team that's done it before. As a team, we've looked at all the companies that are trying to develop a similar product from strawberries. Several of them are in Europe, several are in the US. And I have a great deal of respect for all those teams. But Advanced Farm has just moved so quickly. Their ability to be very lean, to move fast, it's really what I think you need to be successful in this space. Then the third piece I'd say about the team is they have a very complementary set of skills, both from a technology standpoint, a technical standpoint, as well as on the business side as well. And that's something that across agriculture in general, for startups focusing on that space, it's something we haven't seen teams this impressive yet. So really excited to make the investment in Advanced Farm, and then talk maybe in a slightly different way about our fund. We invest beyond just agriculture, of course, at Yamaha. From our venture group, we look at robotics and automation quite broadly. We focus on things like mobility, health and wellness, aerotech, sustainability, as well as food and ag. And so, while we don't have a set number, we would look to probably invest pretty equally across those areas. So I can't tell you exactly how much we've invested in Advanced Farm, but just to give you some sense that we do look at other areas to beyond just ag.
I find it, not just me, a lot of our readers find agricultural technology very interesting. So we will sort of talk about that. And it's a really good opportunity to ask an investment expert about it, you being a very specific agtech lead for Yamaha. A lot of our readers are actually looking for investments, and their investment, I suppose, experts or at least analysts themselves. It says on the press release that or rather, Advanced Farm Technologies Series A funding raised a total of $7.5 million with additional investments. So I guess within that range, Yamaha, being the lead investor, would have had a significant share of that investment. Yeah, I find it surprising, though, that Yamaha, being a motor company, very famous motor company, is interested in agricultural technology. Can you sort of give us a background of how it came to that point where these kind of investments are obviously, as you say, a particular interest of Yamaha?
Sure. So there's a number of reasons for it. First of all, we've actually been involved in the agriculture space for the last 30 years. We have helicopters, they're unmanned, that have been spraying a significant amount of the acreage of rice paddies in Japan since '91. That technology and business has recently come out to Napa here in the U.S. to do spraying of wine grapes. And so there is a history of it within the Yamaha group. Secondly, a lot of people associate us with are consumer-facing products like a motorcycle, but we also have a robotics group as well. We're world leaders in surface mount technology for assembling circuit boards, and a lot of that robotics, the components and that skill set lends itself really well to as we start to move into agriculture, particularly from an actuation standpoint. The third piece is, as a company, our long-term plan has been a big shift, saying we really need to move into new markets for growth. Agriculture, we think, fits with a lot of what our core skill set is from a hardware and a manufacturing standpoint, a component standpoint. And then lastly, the company has made a pretty, I think, profound, I don't want to call it a shift, but a movement to investing in areas of importance from a social change standpoint. As an investment fund, the first box we actually need to check is, does this startup try to solve a major social challenge in the next 10 years? And as a company, most of the things that we go after are tied to sustainable development goals. And so, agriculture is such, I would say it's probably the largest socio-environmental footprint of all the sectors out there. And so, it checks a number of boxes for us as a company to move into.
I think I've seen the Yamaha pilotless helicopter or drone or whatever. So I've seen something similar. There is a lot of activity in the agricultural space, drones being one particular technology. But the thing that you've invested in, the strawberry harvester, that kind of machinery is very complex, and it's required to do something that up until now, I suppose, humans have only been able to do because of the nimbleness required, the delicate sort of nature of the work of picking strawberries and guess other fruits as well. I mean, this one is probably just specifically for strawberry picking. But yeah, let me just ask you, what kind of time frame are you looking at in terms of return on investment on something like this? I mean, how much of a demand is there for a machine like this, and would it find a ready market? I mean, what kind of projections, if any, can you share with us in terms of the business side of it?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's two parts to that question. One is, from a demand standpoint and a customer standpoint for Advanced Farm, and the second one I think would be our own kind of financial return. And actually, there's a third. It would be more a strategic return. We are a corporate venture fund. From a demand standpoint regarding the technology, that's something. One of the reasons why we really wanted to make this investment is this is, as you noted at the start of this call, finding labor for particularly for specialty crops like strawberries is becoming a real big challenge. And it's we see tons of fruit still left in the field just because it goes unpicked. And our investment thesis, it's not really a novel thought. It's been, it's widely spoken about if you talk to any grower. Is just the fact that labor is continuing to become scarcer and just harder to get. And for strawberries, it's because it's such a challenging crop to harvest. Okay, I mean, this is something you're out there all day in the sun, bent over, running. It's it really is a tough job. And so from a demand standpoint, if you talk to any strawberry grower, if something is available to harvest their crop, as soon as the technology is ready, there's no shortage of growers wanting this. That's really clear. It works quite well from a utilization standpoint because these are crops that are that you harvest 3 days a week, and particularly in the U.S., you can utilize the asset all year round. So from a customer standpoint, we like that. growing the business, we think this can be I think for all of our investments in general, we're not, we do invest out of a venture fund. It's a traditional 10-year life. And so we do need to find ways to liquidate that investment, within sort of that type of time frame, which would be standard of, any other VC. But really, I mean, when we look at some of the other companies in this space that have already gone from Series A to exit, like a Blue River technology, certainly there's plenty of precedent for that in the robotics space. And so, I think our timeline's 10 years, but really it's a combination of size and the magnitude of the return versus the timing. Of course, things, we're more than happy to have things take longer if the company is growing and doing great things. We don't need to exit, and so we're really more trying to support the company. We're really excited what they're doing, and we hope they're going to be quite successful.
And in terms of specific numbers, maybe you have aggregations of investments of this type. I don't know specifically how many other agricultural technology companies you have invested in. You yourself, been responsible for or overseen or been involved in. Maybe you can tell us that. But is there other numbers in terms of what kind of returns an investment company like yours is looking for in a year or two? You've mentioned that you kind of think in 10-year timeframes, but are there kind of milestones or things that you look for as you progress in your investment strategy?
Well, I think from a return standpoint, we really target. We want to be a successful venture fund targeting in industry standard returns. We don't exist. Our company does not set up a venture capital fund. We exist to deliver strategic value to the company, but we strongly believe that in order to deliver that value, you need to invest in companies that are successful, that are able to grow. For us to invest alongside, to invest in great companies and invest alongside great other investors, we need to be aligned with the returns that they're seeking. And so, from a return standpoint, we'd be very standard what everybody else is looking for. And from a strategic standpoint, that's really to be seen. We didn't make our investment in Advanced Farm with any collaboration in place. I think we hope to help them as much as we can. As investors, we open up every door we can to our parent company. But that's something that really over the next several months we're going to plan to get to know the company and see where we can help them out.
I mean, I'm not an investment expert. So when you say the kind of returns that everybody in the market might expect, what is standard? What is kind of, in terms of possibly as a percentage? I know these are startups, and it's kind of difficult to kind of say in the immediate short term what the returns will be, if any, but maybe looking 5 years ahead, is there a percentage return that generally investors look for, investors like yourself or the market? When you talk about sort of what other people, you're in line with what other people sort of expect. Is there a figure or a number that you can put on that?
Well, there is, but it's not something that we're going to be public about. So that's as much as I can say. We're looking to invest like a traditional VC, those types of returns. I think you can find some of that out there, but it's just those are sort of our private numbers and targets. But for Advanced Farm, I think the hope that they want and that we want is that they can become a really successful large ag robotics company, you know. And so, you know, if they can do that, they can be, you know, hopefully in the future as big as a John Deere.
Yeah, part of the reason I'm asking is because there just seems, from a observer's point of view, there just seems such a massive potential in this market for this kind of technology. It's kind of a step change, a big change from mechanization of the farm to roboticization. It's a very big step forward. So it'd be very interesting to you know, see how things progress over the next year or two, because a lot of these technologies are just coming on stream now onto the field now. So it would be interesting to monitor. But going back to what we were talking about actually on the field, the kind of solutions, the problems that they solve, primarily the labor shortages. Japan obviously has a very well-known situation of labor shortage in certain areas, possibly an aging population. Maybe that specific issue doesn't affect farms, but they'll probably need robots more than even the US, even though US is a much bigger market and things like that. But I mean, you probably have a good insight into maybe are able to compare the two countries, Japan being obviously I guess your primary market. I mean, how do you see the fund or the agricultural technology market developing in Japan, and how does it compare, or do you think it will compare to the US? Maybe Japan will be faster in terms of growth, or
No, so Japan actually, even though we're based there as a company, is a small part of the revenue of the company as a whole. And from an agriculture standpoint, for us, at least from the venture group, even for a company, for a broader company, it's not our primary focus. Advanced Farm, to my knowledge, has no plans to go to the Japanese market. For strawberries, it's a very different market. Most of those crops are in greenhouses, and so it's probably not conducive, at least right now, to what Advanced Farm is doing. So to me, their primary market and our primary focus right now in agriculture as we scale it out is the U.S. market, potentially Australia, New Zealand, Europe is always a big focus, but we're going to focus on those larger markets right now.
Right, and I don't want to sort of ask for any political perspective or anything, but as you know, I mean, just as a background to my question, as you know, there has been a lot of talk about immigration, cross-border immigration from the south of the US border. And a lot of that immigration, as far as I know, or at least a significant portion of it, is to do with the farms, agricultural industries requirement for labor, human labor. Now, is that something that can be significantly alleviated by robotics in general, the kind of technology that's coming on stream now, and the kind of machines that you've invested in? I mean, I don't know. I haven't really I haven't collated all the different companies like Advanced Farm Technologies, but I believe there are a fair number of them sort of emerging right now. Are they making a difference now, or do you think they will make a difference now to the labor shortages, labor difficulties, and things like that?
Well, I would kind of break that question apart from an or a different way to say it is, this is a global problem. Doesn't matter what the country is. If you're growing strawberries, there's a significant shortage of labor because nobody wants to go do that right now. It's, as I said at the start of this call, it's a challenging, maybe one of the hardest things to do in agriculture, spend all day out under the sun, bent down, picking. As a result, you are seeing, an aging workforce for strawberry picking. And so because of that, there's this major gap, and growers are really constrained in their ability to produce more fruit, which is something that there's certainly an increasing appetite for globally as the population moves to wanting more healthy products. And so if this is something that is able to successfully get into fields and harvest fruit, that's something will only be a big win for both consumers and for growers.
Right, and penultimate question. What other agricultural technology investments have you made, or has Yamaha made, or are you looking to make? Any companies you're researching, or sectors specifically that you're looking at? So it's kind of technologies that you're looking at?
Sure. So, the public investments that we've made in the agriculture space, in addition to Advanced Farm, we've made, as I said, an investment in Robotics Plus. That's a New Zealand-based startup. We invested in a company called Abundant Robotics. They do the automated harvest of apples. We also, a number of the companies we invest in, they cross over. They don't just focus on ag. Ag tends to be one area of focus for them. And so we invested, for example, in a company called Soft Robotics. They're a pneumatic end effector startup out of Boston. So they do things like they can pick up fruit in pack houses and bags of salad. But could be used for really any different sector. In a UAV or a drone startup called Precision Hawk. And we also this year invested in another New Zealand company called Invert Robotics, which is again really an adjacency to agriculture. They've started in the dairy space, but focused on inspection of dairy tanks, and they're moving into other sectors as well, where inspection of hard to reach places is at a premium.
There's a lot of talk about vertical farming. I'm sure you know what that is.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. What's your observations of that? What's your perspective on that, as a market as well as a technology?
Sure. I think vertical farming fits into this bucket of technologies which has the ability to transform the way food is grown and consumed. It's certainly in its early days. It's still not proven at scale, and whether it's very capital intensive. But it's something that, if successful, and if somebody is able to get that model to work, I think can be a big game changer for sure. It's an area that we've focused on, and we haven't found something yet to invest in. But there's a lot of really smart people doing some amazing things there, and so I think it's certainly on our radar, definitely a vision, but still a ways to go from a commercially viable product, at least from what I've seen.
That's very interesting, actually, because there has been at least one of my journalist colleagues who thinks they might not work out, but as a journalist, we're not really investment experts. If a lot of people are putting in a lot of money, they must have seen some opportunity there. So it'd be very interesting to see how it works out in terms of as a business proposition. Okay, well, thanks for your perspective. How long have you been in this job?
So I've been at Yamaha for about a year. Before that, I worked in the agriculture space and actually worked with the Yamaha Ventures team for about 3 years. So I've known them for quite a while, but on board now for the last year.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's a very interesting area.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.